No, man, but you got to keep going. What am I going to do, quit? That's not an option. You got to keep on keeping on. Life's a garden, dig it? You make it work for you. You never give up, man. That's my philosophy.
Hey gardeners, how are you all doing there? Hope you're all having a great week. I'm just over here in our very weedy front yard garden plot over at my friend's place here, checking on some stuff. Actually picking out some fresh spinach too as well, but also just getting to notice how all of our garlic is doing. It's looking awesome, but look how much we have growing this year. We get like 300 heads of garlic we should be harvesting up as we get closer to summer, but yeah, they're looking really good. Now, let's get growing. All right. Welcome, garden enthusiasts and passionate plant people, to another edition of Let's Get Growing, our live cast here on the Urban Gardener channel. And it's so awesome to have all of you here with me today. We have got a really, really great show ahead of you. For you here today. Just a little bit later in the show, we have with us Jenna from Growfully with Jenna coming up here just a little bit later on. So be sure to stay tuned. And just a little bit too, we also have Katrina from Sow and Tare we'll have with us here for our Are You Following Me segment. So definitely be sure to stick with us here for these really fun gardening conversations we've got coming up. And if you are here with us right now at the top of the show, definitely right away hit that like button, click the thumbs up, and also subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and hit the bell notification so you'll be notified of our upcoming episodes and videos here on the Urban Gardener channel. And definitely share with all your friends. We're a growing show and a growing channel, and we love to have all of you awesome garden folks with us here each and every weekend as we have our Let's Get Growing show on Saturdays and Sundays right here at 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time and 2 p.m. Eastern for all of you folks on the East Coast there. So definitely come along with us here each and every weekend and share with all of your friends. Plus, a big, huge shout out to all of you who are watching us on the replay. We know a lot of you like to listen or watch whenever you get the opportunity, as many folks don't really have the time to come and join with us live. Even though we love the live discussion, we do love all of our replay watchers as well too. So definitely, if you're here watching on the replay, get down in the comment section below. Let me know you're here. Let me know what you think of the show. Give me some thoughts, comments, questions, any ideas that you might have for future episodes right down in the comment section below. And if you do have any questions or comments while you're here live with us, definitely jump into the chat box. Let us know if you got any questions for our guests as well. We'll definitely feature those later on in the show as well too. So love to hear from all of you who are here with us right now. Let me know what you've got growing on in the comments section there as well too. So yeah, we've got a really great show ahead for you here today. As I mentioned, Growfully with Jenna coming up here in a little bit. We got Katrina from Sow and Tare as well. And also coming up too, I want to let everybody know this next week, we do have joining with us, which will be, mind you, a pre-recorded interview I've already done already, but it's going to be a great interview, great discussion, and opportunity to meet and know just a little bit more about our good friend James Prigioni from the Gardening Channel with James Prigioni. We'll have him with us next week, so definitely come join with us to check out that really awesome gardening conversation. James is really awesome. We had a great fun discussion, so definitely join us with that there. And also joining with us will be Joe and Corky from Grow Big TV as well too. So we'll have them on the show with us. So looking forward to another great show next week as well too. So you'll definitely want to make sure you hit that bell notification so you can be notified, or go and click on the the reminder button so you can be reminded of that show when it comes out next week. And also too, I do want to let everybody know we are now doing Sunday shows as well. We've got a Let's Get Growing show on Sunday, so we do have our Sunday edition of the Let's Get Growing show. And tomorrow, what we're going to be doing on the Let's Get Growing show is we'll be joined with our good friend Scott Wilson from the Gardener Scott channel. He'll be here to join with us and talk all about getting your season started and all sorts of other fun gardening questions. So if you do have any sort of questions or any sort of things that you're wondering about, Gardener Scott is just a massive wealth of knowledge. You're going to want to make sure you join us for that show so you can ask any of your questions of Gardener Scott as well too. So that's basically what we got coming up here on the show. So it's going to be a really great show tomorrow as well. So be sure to join with us. And again, it's the same time, 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, 2 p.m. Eastern Time as well. So how's everything going in all your gardens right now? I mean, it's this time of year, man. We are busy, busy, busy. I know, again, time management is one of my goals this year. I've got to get some things. I got so many things growing on that I've got to make sure I get things all taken care of. So I've got to really manage some time, and with the list of chores and things I've got to get done just to get a lot of our spaces ready coming out of winter. We've got some repairs we've got to do. We've got, cleanup. I mean, my back patio area is just a real mess. So I've been actually out just with the pressure washer, just getting things cleaned up around here, trying to get things all kind of arranged out, ready to go. We've got a lot of things we've been planting out. I did plant out my first round of peas we did a couple of weeks back. Those are all popping up and coming out of the ground right now. So I'm getting prepared to start doing our second batch here this next week as well too. We've been planting out all of our cool weather crops, spinach, lettuces. We've got things that I'm growing as far as our brassicas. I've got broccoli, cabbage, some kale, some different things like that we got going. Some Brussels sprouts that I want to try again this year. I'm never really successful with Brussels sprouts. I've had one or two decent seasons with them, but for the most part, those have always been kind of a challenge, as well as most other brassicas. I've done fairly well with some here and there, but I'm looking for some real good success this year. So we getting those started up. And also too, it's St. Patrick's Day this weekend. Tomorrow's St. Patrick's Day. So again, this is that one time we know on the calendar is about that time that we can start getting out and planting potatoes. So I'm going to get out this week too and plant some potatoes. I've got some seed potato that I've gotten from one of my local garden centers, garden nurseries. And I've also got a bunch of potatoes that I grew from this last season that have got a bunch of eyes. They've been chitting and getting some pretty good eyes on them now growing out. So we're going to plant some of those out in some of our spaces as well too. So I've got this really cool space in the alleyway that we're going to plant them in ground. I did a little patch a couple of seasons ago, and then harvested those in this area, and then kind of forgot about didn't even think about them. We grew a bunch of other things in this area. We had corn, we had some squash, we had some whole bunch of different things kind of growing in this area. And I didn't notice that there were some potato volunteers from probably a few of the little ones that got left behind that previous season that grew up last season. And so when I was pulling and harvesting things out, I noticed and dug up all of these and they were really big, nice sized potatoes too that came from these volunteers. So I'm gonna hopefully we'll have some more volunteers. I haven't seen anything pop up yet, but if they are, it's gonna happen real soon. But I wouldn't be surprised if that doesn't happen, because again, it's too easy to kind of leave behind a couple of those small little potato tubers, when you're harvesting all the big ones. So maybe we'll get some more volunteer potatoes growing again in that space, but I'm going to take some of those other ones that we've got eyes. I'm going to plant those in there, and then we'll use some of our seed potato that I got from the nursery, and we'll grow some container potatoes this season. I haven't done that actually for a few seasons. That was something that I did regularly. I think as we were first starting the channel, we have like the first 3-4 years of my channel, we did kind of a harvest kind of results type of video on what we got from our container potatoes. We've had really good years and we've had some really kind of not so good years. It's kind of the thing with potatoes, though, is that you never really know what you're going to get from them until you start pulling them up out of the ground. And even if you've got these big, beautiful plants coming up, I've had some of the most awesome plants, big, thriving looking plants throughout the season, and pulled out just little tiny batches of potatoes before. And so you never know what you're going to get when you're talking about potatoes. All right, let's do a little rundown, see who we got here with us. And of course, I want to give a big shout out to our moderator, Jay Dixon, the best moderator on YouTube. That's for sure. Joining with us here in the chat box, leaving lots of great links and everything. So if we're talking about something or any channels or anything like that, definitely check the chat box, as well as Jay will be leaving links throughout the show. We've got with us John Jude joined with us real early, talking about his favorite gardener lady, Jenna, for sure. And let's see here. Yeah, John Jude. Here we go. I think he got in here yesterday, leaving that one. But great to have you with us here. Heather Fox joining with us and saying hello, coming over from Garden Like a Viking. Yeah, awesome. Of Nate too. We had him on the show last week. Lots of you Viking gardeners came and joined with us for the show last week for our conversation with Nate. And I get to watch his live streams as we're getting ready for the show each and every week. And so he gave us a real big shout out for our show here with Jenna today. So seeing a lot of you awesome Viking gardeners here again with us this week. So really great to have you here. Oh, and here we go. Yep. Another Viking in the house. There we go. Zone 8. All right. All right. Great to have you in with us here. Big Will Dog joining with us. Awesome. And Sow and Tare already in the conversation here. We'll get to meet Katrina here in just a few minutes here. Awesome. Awesome. We got PJ's Family Farm. Nice to have you here, PJ. Awesome. Awesome. Brampton Gardner back in with us here. Hello, Enoch, Jenna, and chat. Yes, yes. Awesome to have you here with us. Great. John Jude saying, started a bunch of onions, carrots, and radishes, potatoes, just as Jenna's advice says. Yes, it's that time of season for all of those things. Really great, cool weather crops to get started with. Big Will Dog says, got peas, carrots, cabbage, celery, potatoes, and spinach all in the ground now. Yes, awesome. Lots of great stuff. Okay, okay, awesome. There we go. John says, potatoes are sometimes like finding Easter eggs. You get what you find. That's right. That's right. Little hidden gems in the ground. And again, too, even if you are pulling up all of those and you got those little ones that are kind of in there and they're just a little too small for harvesting, leave them in the ground even and see what you get coming up later on in the season or the next season as volunteers. I'm telling you, it's a nice surprise to find those sort of things growing in the ground. Yes, yes, yes. Okay, awesome. All right, so what we're going to do now real quick is we're going to take a little break here, just real quick here, and then we'll be back real quick to meet with Katrina from Sow and Tare. Let's Get Growing is sponsored by IV Organic.
Hi, my name is Charles Malky, biologist and plant expert with Ivory Organics, where we grow cool plants and author Saving the World with the Home Garden. Ivory Organic 3-in-1 Plant Guard has 7 natural oils that protect your plants, not just from the summer heat as well as winter cold, but also protects your plants from damaging insects and rodents. The oils in the product include castor, cinnamon, clove, garlic, peppermint, rosemary, and spearmint. These oils are natural insect and rodent repellent oils, which are encapsulated by the base powder, offering your plants months of protection at a time. 1 application per year will suffice for protection against damaging summer sunburn and winter sun scald, but if the target is pests, application as much as 2 to 3 times a year may be necessary.
Hi everyone, this is Sarah from Sarah's Seed Shop, and I'm here with this week's trivia question. Where in the world were potatoes first cultivated? Was it A, Italy, B, Ireland, C, Peru, or D, Spain? If you think you know the answer, go ahead and add it to the comments, and I'll be back with the answer a little bit later on in the show.
So, all right. So, you know where potatoes were first cultivated from? Answer Sarah's question there in our comments as well, too. Here, again, like she said, we'll have the answer just a little bit later in the show. So, all right, now it's got time to meet our first guest. I got to meet this last fall. I went to the National Heirloom Exposition down in Ventura County, Southern California. It was the 10th annual National Heirloom Exposition. I was really excited to go to this event and get to meet all of the great and wonderful gardeners. And this last fall, I got to meet Katrina from Sow and Tare. So let's get our "Are You Following Me" segment started.
Are you following me? Are you following me, dude?
So, all right, everybody, let's welcome Katrina from Sow and Tare with us. Katrina, really, really awesome to have you here today. Thank you for joining us here on the show. How's everything growing in your garden this week?
Things are going good. You know, we just got rid of a bunch of rain and the sunshine is happening. I had planted peas before, and of course, they rotted in the ground. So these are things we deal with sometimes as gardeners.
Yeah. And again, too, it's a busy time of year. I bet it's just as busy for you, trying to get all of these sort of things get started so we get our growing season really roaring along. I've got already a bunch of things planted, but there's still tons of projects and things that we got to get done. Tell us just a little bit more about yourself and what you got going on in your garden there.
Yeah, I am in California, so I'm zone 9B, which is much warmer than you are, I believe, right?
Yeah, just a bit warmer. I'm 8B.
Okay. Yeah, so I'm zone 9B. I'm actually in town, so it's urban as you get. I'm on a 7,000 square foot lot, and I grow as much food as I can. Sure, I could grow more. I'm growing enough right now. So I have garden space and over 40 fruit trees, and I raise quail and rabbits, and then have 3 chickens as well. And all of that comes together to be a really, really good self-sufficiency group. I mean, it works really, really well. And to have all of that on 7,000 square feet is pretty awesome.
7,000
if I can do it, you can do it.
That's right. 7,000 square feet. That's not very much space. And then you said, how many trees do you have growing in that
Over
space?
40.
Wow. That's quite an efficient use of space there to fit that many in there.
The key is to keep them small, and then also to have some seasonality in it. So like I have 3 peach trees in the back, but they don't all peach at the same time, right? They don't all fruit at the same time. So you have an extended peach season within three different trees. So that works really well. And I dug a pond as well. So there's a lot of stuff you can do with that.
So let me ask you real quick, because we do have a few container trees around in my space. One of the things I'm noticing this year is that we've had a pretty warm winter, and it seems like a lot of things are starting to wake up just a little early this year. Are you finding that similar type of issue with your space as well?
The past few years, things have been confused.
Yes.
I have an Anna's apple tree that it's an early apple, but sometimes she'll give me a double crop. She'll give me a crop in the fall sometimes too. And then I have a really, really early peach tree. It's Desert Gold, and that peach tree was super early this year in the flowers. And of course, half the blooms blew away with all the storms, but we have plenty of baby peaches up there. So
Oh,
yeah.
excellent, excellent. And we got already a question for you right along with that there. What peach varieties do you grow?
I have
Ryan, thanks for the question.
yeah, I have Desert Gold, which is an early peach. It's nothing really special about it except for it's fresh and it's early.
Yeah.
So that's its merit. So I grow Desert Gold, Bonita. There's a nectar peach, which is really good. We use it for juicing, and it's really good. I have a baby Crawford in the front, and there was one branch of a different kind, but it died. There was a multi-grafted tree that had too many grafts on it.
Oh,
But yeah, those are the peaches that I have. So yeah, pretty
yeah,
awesome.
yeah. So you said, okay, real quick, I want to get in that. Too many grafts on it. Now, what is too many grafts on a tree?
So this is the one I was talking to you about earlier about not multi-grafting with
Mhm.
apricot
Okay,
because
yeah.
the apricot takes over. So what happened in this particular tree? I bought this tree grafted. It was called a fruit salad tree, and it's all the rage at some point. And it's a really great idea. The issue with that is you have to maintain each of the grafts evenly. So you can't make one go off and take over the tree because the rest of them will just be like, okay, I guess I'm going to hang on here. And so it was on that.
Mhm.
So it just wasn't as vigorous enough to maintain with the apricot. And it's basically right now that tree is an apricot with a little bit of Santa Rosa plum.
Oh, excellent, excellent. Yeah. All right. So real quick here, let's jump right into um what is I love to get into everybody's garden story, especially when we first have you on the show. I'd like to know a little bit more. How did this passion for gardening and growing get started for you? Was this something that happened when you were younger, or did this kind of develop when you were a little older? So what's your garden story?
So my grandpa was a wonderful gardener. He loved the garden. So I'm sure that instilled something in me when we went and visited. We'd go down to the garden and stuff. And then growing up, my dad always had a garden, and so when I was little, me and my brother got a little piece of the garden to do, and I always did carrots and radishes.
Oh, yes.
That was what I always did. Those were my responsibilities, and the carrots never got to full size because I was always eating them.
Oh, yeah, yeah, right?
Super
It's hard
sweet.
to be patient, right?
I mean, I remember learning that you could eat corn raw and peas raw and all of that in the garden, which is pretty cool. So I think that started it. And then I have a passion for self-sufficiency and growing things that I like, food that I want to eat, and then also foraging. So I do that as well. Not as much anymore, but I do that as well, foraging and just knowing what you can eat and being sufficient at that. And so when um I lived with my grandma during I did my master's degree, and I'm actually a wildlife biologist.
Yeah,
So wildlife biologist growing things. Um,
yeah.
and when I was with her, I was like, okay, I'm going to be buying a house after this at some point. But I want trees now. So I actually bought and maintained some of the fruit trees I have here in containers before I even had a house.
Yeah.
and so when I did buy this house and I
wow.
moved in, actually I planted things before I even moved in. That's how much it was. And it was a pretty funny thing because I was taking out everything. The neighborhood was like, "What the heck is this lady doing?" Tear out all the landscaping in the front, everything in the back. And once people saw what I was doing, they're like, "Oh, okay, I get it now. It's all food."
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, so that was kind of the background. And I
Yeah.
mean, I bought this house in 2013, so I've been here for quite some time doing this. Um, my channel I just started a couple of years ago, so that, hey, maybe I should have started when I actually started here.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Me, I moved into my place probably about 12, 13 years ago, and that's where I really got started with my small space gardening
hmm
adventure. Really was getting to utilize my spaces and everything too. Let's see here. What is it that you enjoy most about gardening? What is it that really gets you going when you get out there?
I think where I'm most excited is when I see a volunteer plant.
Oh, yes.
There's something about seeing a volunteer plant. I have a potato, just like what you're talking about. I have one potato on the side of the house right now. Like,
Right.
there's cilantro over there. You were over there before. I mean, there's so many things that volunteer in the yard that, I say, oh my gosh, what are those? I have a video that one of my videos, I'm looking down an area. I'm going to plant this here. I'm like, what is all that? And when you don't plant it, you don't immediately recognize what these little
Mhm.
baby plants are.
Yes.
I had a whole bed of tree collard babies.
Oh, really?
Yes. And I'm
Yes.
like, that's what that is. So I've been giving some of those away. And I mean, you can't use all of them.
That's
Um,
right.
but everything that self seeds, the borage, all that stuff, like I really get excited about that. I get excited about planting things for sure. I get excited when you see the first fruit of whatever you plant,
Mhm.
pulling up sweet potatoes, seeing what's underneath the ground, all of that. But it's the volunteers that get me excited.
Yeah, yeah, there's definitely nothing like when you get those volunteers popping up. I just the other day was out, and in fact, I think I put this on my Instagram. Had a radish, French breakfast radish that was popping up out of the a crack in my back patio. I had some buckets back there, and it kind of
hmm
I couldn't see it until I was moving everything the other day, and there was a crack there, and definitely, quite a surprise to find. I see that my neighbor is out. I'm sure everybody can hear that right now. My neighbor's out with something, mowing the lawn or something there right now. So hopefully that isn't too
Okay.
distracting for everybody. But yeah, yeah, yeah. So
I
yeah.
have to tell you a volunteer story.
Oh, okay,
Okay.
definitely.
Between my house and my neighbor's house, the walls is 10 feet.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, urban.
Yeah,
We both have a sidewalk right kind of on the property line. There's a little crack.
yeah, yeah.
There was a volunteer yellow pear tomato that planted itself right there.
All
Nobody
right.
watered it. It grew. It grew. It grew to both houses. It grew
Yeah.
7 feet tall, and it grew 17 feet long. And both of us were like tiptoeing through it and collecting the fruit and stuff. And I mean that it's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing. You saying about that plant in the crack, I was like, oh, this is a good story.
It's just amazing where some seeds will find themselves and some things that you get popped up. I was just so surprised. I mean, just this full big radish just growing right out of this crack, but
hmm
I'm sure it's probably not the tastiest radish in the world, but it was kind of really neat to see it popping up there.
Right.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about your channel too. You said you started your channel a couple of years ago. First off, let's talk about the name Sow and Tare. How do we come up with the name Sow and Tare for your YouTube channel?
Yeah, I had this name in my head for over a year before I actually started the channel. Why didn't I start then? I don't know, because that would have been 2020 when everybody blew up.
Right.
I don't know. So sow is like sowing seeds. Where you got your gardening channel, probably everybody on here understands that one. So sow is not only starting seeds, it's starting something. You can sow a thought, you can sow an action, you can start something. And then tare, you got to think back to middle school or high school when you're measuring things and you have something on a scale and you tare it, right? So you make the container go to 0 and you're measuring only the good stuff.
Yeah.
So it's measuring the good stuff and finding balance. And that's where the name comes from, is to plant, whether that's seeds or ideas, thoughts, and then find balance with that. And I just thought that was a good play on words as well.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that's what I try to do. We do gardening on my channel. There's gardening, there's animal stuff. So with the quail and the rabbits and the chickens, and that all comes together too, because they make compost for the garden. You know, and then I do raise the quail and the quail and the chickens for eggs, and the quail and the rabbits for meat. The chickens are pests that poop breakfast.
Right.
Yeah. So, and then I also do cooking videos, and how you use this, how you preserve it. So we do preservation videos, build videos for things that need to happen here, stuff like that. So it's really the whole kind of how we are being more, how I'm being more self-sufficient.
Yeah, that's excellent. Yeah, you got lots of great videos. One of the ones I was saying earlier, kind of talking more about what you were talking about, utilizing animals in your space, and the smaller space too. I really like the idea of how you have your rabbits up above the chickens and other things as well, in order to kind of have the chickens help mix up the rabbit manure as well too. You want to talk just a little bit more about how you're incorporating your animals in your space?
Yeah, so the animals came after the plants for the most part, and it pretty much was, where I want to raise these, where do I put them? At some point, pretty much everybody's like, oh yeah, I want to get chickens, and I want to get this, I want to get that. Chickens are what people go to, and I actually got rabbits first.
Yeah,
I think it was rabbits, then quail, then chickens, but they were all very close together. And so rabbits have hot manure, not hot manure. Rabbits have cold manure, which means you can put their manure right on your plants. They make a really, really good nutrient snack for your plants.
right. Yeah.
And then the birds. So here's a key: birds don't pee. Okay. A rabbit pees out the nitrogen. That's where the nitrogen goes. That's why it's cold manure. So since birds don't pee, your quail and your chicken have that nitrogen in their manure. So it's hot nitrogen, or it's hot manure. So that needs to take time to break down before you put it on your plants. And so this system, it's a space-saving thing, but it's also a waste management that's efficient, and it's a time saver for you, because you don't have to be doing it, because the chickens will do the work for you, and you get compost out of it. So you want to have quite a bit, like wood chips, like that deep or deeper in there. So you're basically raising animals on a compost pile. The chickens turns thing in, and you get compost. So, for example, how much compost can you get? Because this is another thing. Even if you're not going to raise animals for meat, raising animals for the compost is even really, really good. So maybe rescue some rabbits. Go out and rescue some rabbits. Pet them. They're fun to pet. They're nice and soft. And you can raise them in that way, and then have chickens, and you can sell the eggs if you want, if you don't eat eggs even. So for example, I have a quail aviary and what I call a raviary, because I had to come up with a fun name. It's rabbits over quail. So the chickens, rabbits over chickens is called a racking house. That's something that Joel Salatin termed. So he coined that phrase. It's already existing, but Raviary is mine. So the Raviary and the main quail aviary are approximately 70 square feet each, so 10 by 7. And I took out a couple plants for those things. I said, okay, I'm going to take out some things to put these guys in. And we just sifted out the compost of those and got 80 feed bags full of compost. So feed
wow.
bags, those 50-pound,
Yeah.
those 50-pound feed bags.
That's a lot.
And that's a lot on a small space, and it was free. So incorporating animals, even if you're not going to eat them or eat their products, I think is super important. And then also, I mean, just look at what happens in nature. I mean, things poop, they fall on the ground, and then plants grow.
That's right.
Right?
Right. Yeah. That's
So
right. Let's see here. I got a question from somebody. You mentioned barrage. It was from Connie Davidson. I think she got the name misspelled there. Oh, she did mention here though too.
borage.
Right.
Borage. It's supposed to be borage, like courage.
I've tried growing borage several times. Any tips? And then she says also, Katrina. Sorry, I goofed.
My neighbor gave me one plant, and now I have millions. So I don't know that I have any advice. I don't water it. What zone is Connie in? Do we know? Because my zone, we don't really freeze that much, but I don't know that matters. We do freeze. I don't do anything to them. They grow. I have wood chips were down there. I don't think there's wood chips anymore. I think it's all compost now. But they grow readily here. So I don't know. This is a volunteer question.
Right. Yeah. It's definitely, again, it's another one of those awesome volunteers, right?
Well, and you can dehydrate the leaves. It tastes like cucumber. You can eat the whole plant. You can even dehydrate the leaves and kind of powder that, and you can save that to make ziti sauce when you don't have cucumbers. So it's pretty cool. But yeah, I'm sorry, I don't know any tips. Maybe it's lacking fertilization, or maybe you're giving it too much water.
Yeah.
I don't water mine.
Let's see. Oh, and real quick, I just want to address this here. Tim was saying, I guess I missed Jenna. Will this be available later? You haven't missed Jenna at all. Jenna's still coming up here in just a few. So stay tuned. We got that conversation coming up in just a little bit there. We're with Katrina from Sow and Tare right now. And Cookie Monkey was saying, with the name Tare, just curious, since that word is also used for weeds, do you garden the weed plants for eating and or medicinal purposes? I mean, I think you mentioned foraging just a little bit ago too, right?
Yeah, so foraging, I do forage, and like right now I have a bunch of miner's lettuce in the yard. It came over from the neighbors. It is a native plant. I'm pretty sure she brought it over to her yard though. And in my yard it's a weed, but I eat it. So some of them you eat, some of them you don't. I mean, like you can eat milk thistle. It tastes like lettuce. Do I need to plant it? No. So yeah, I do forage. I do eat things that are out there that I know are edible, as long as they're tasty.
Yeah, definitely. And I want to let everybody know too, if you're into foraging as well too, our book club, we have a book club, a monthly book club that's going on our Sunday edition of the show. And this month's book is from Ellen Zakos, and it's How to Forage Wild Foods Without Dying. It's a really great book, and that's our featured book for our Book of the Month Club. So if you are interested in foraging, definitely come join our Book of the Month Club and check that out as well too. So real quick, as we end our little discussion here, you want to let us know just a little bit more about your channel, where you can find you and what you got coming up this season? Yeah,
so I'm Sow and Tare. You can find it on YouTube, Sow and Tare, and SOWNTARE. And then I also have a website. It's sowandtare.com. And that if you're local, that might be more valuable to you if you're local to me. I'm in Gilroy, California. But check it out. And then I am working on, I guess this isn't really gardening, but I am working on putting together a course for Quail University, which is raising quail in aviaries, and so I'm putting that together. I'm going to have all sorts of videos coming out on all the gardening aspects as well. I did just film a bunch of stuff about grafting, so that will be coming out here probably next week. I do a Monday night live, 6 p.m. Pacific time, and every Monday night. And then I also have a members area where we do a cook with me live. And so it's a whole lot of fun cooking together.
Oh yes, yeah, cooking especially too. That's one of the things I don't think people get that much of when it comes to gardening channels and all of that, is utilizing the food that we're growing in our garden. So I think that's a really great thing. You should go and check out Katrina's cooking show and all the other things on her channel, Sow and Tare. We do have links down below in the description. And I want to thank you so much for joining with us here on our show this week. It's really awesome to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you so much for inviting me.
You got it. You got it. Now everybody go check out her channel in the description down below, and we'll see you a little bit later. Thank you. Hey gardeners, thanks for tuning in to our show today. We'll be right back at it here in just a moment. I just wanted to take a second here to highlight our regular videos and features here on the Urban Gardener channel. Our weekly garden journals, and our incredible featured visits.
The answer to this week's trivia question is C, Peru. Potatoes were first cultivated around 7,000 years ago, and they were originally grown in South America, what would be modern-day Peru, as well as parts of northern Bolivia. Now, potatoes are commonly associated with Ireland, and a lot of people even like to plant their potatoes on St. Patrick's Day. But potatoes were not actually introduced to Ireland until centuries later, when they were brought by Spanish explorers, who in turn had found them in South America. Thanks for participating in this week's trivia question, and I hope you'll check back in next week for more fun garden trivia brought to you by Sarah's Seed Shop, where you can find garden seeds at unbeatable prices. Thanks, and enjoy the rest of the show.
All right. Here we are, moving right along here. Just want to jump in our comment section here and let's see here. I want to make sure. Oh. Cookie says, thanks, Katrina. Awesome conversation there with Sow and Tare. Oh, and she says, thank you. Awesome. Excellent. All right. So I guess it's time. Let's get moving on here. We've got our featured guest here with us. Let's move on here.
You never know when you might learn something, and that's what this is about for me. These are people that I admire. Please welcome my next guest.
All right. And joining with us here for our featured guest this week is Jenna from Growfully with Jenna. There she is. How are we doing?
Oh, good. How are you doing?
Doing really great. It's good to see you here.
You too.
Love the background setup. You got it all set up nice.
Yeah, it looks a little different from yesterday. I did some cleaning up.
Excellent, excellent. So really great to have you here. Thanks for joining with us. And
Thank you for having me.
yeah, you betcha, you betcha. And let's see, let's jump right into this interview here and talk about your gardening story. You've got a really great gardening channel. You got lots of great followers and all of that. How did all of your gardening adventure get started?
So it's been a long adventure. I kind of, I don't, this isn't really when I started gardening, but this is the little story I like to tell. So when I was very young, like probably 3 years old, my mom has some pictures of me at Easter time in this adorable frilly white Easter dress, little white saddle shoes and a white bonnet. And she was trying to get, nice pictures of me out in the garden in their backyard. And I was not having it. Like in all the pictures, I'm just like this. And then she has an after picture where she basically turned around, went back in the house for a minute, came back out, and I was in the dirt playing and had covered my beautiful white dress with dirt on my face. And she snapped a picture then, and I had the biggest grin on my face. So I like to say that's when it all started. But really, it's my parents were the big catalyst in all of this gardening journey. My parents are both avid gardeners. My mom is a master gardener. She's done various kind of careers to do with gardening. My dad has always he was raised on a farm. They always had a giant vegetable garden because he had 10 kids, and that was just kind of how you fed yourself.
10 kids.
Yeah. And so he brought that, he carried that tradition along. We always had a vegetable garden. And from the time all of me and my siblings were young, Dad would let us have, a little plot out there where we could plant what we wanted. We were also always expected to, help out. So weeding, picking produce, I did, I had all that exposure, but I didn't always love gardening. Probably from the time I was, old enough to start helping with the chores until I was in college, it was kind of it was a chore. I mean, yeah. I hated, like, one of our main things that we had to do as kids was pick green beans and pick cherries. And yeah. I hated those things. Like, I hated being out there. Because, Mom and Dad would say, go out in the morning when it's cool and get it done. And I would never listen. I'd be out there, in July or August in the middle of the day with the bugs and the cherry juice dripping down my arms. And it was miserable and I hated it. So I kind of took, when I got old enough, I took a hiatus from gardening. But it was not too long after I graduated from college that I really found my way right back to it. One of the first homes the first rental I lived in, I asked them if I could tear up the backyard and build a garden. And then the first couple of permanent homes I was in, same thing. The first thing that I did was go out and build a garden. And it just, and everyone in my family now, my siblings were all involved in it some way. It just really feels like something that is like in our blood. It's just, no matter how I tried, I just couldn't get away from it. And now at this point as an adult, like, it's something that's almost therapeutic to me. Really being rugged and outdoorsy, as much as I love the outdoors, is not necessarily my nature. I'm more like a book lover, but I have found through the years that doing this work, being outdoors, hands in the dirt, under the sun, sweating, working hard, is one of the absolutely most beneficial things that I can do for just my physical health, my mental health, just all around making me feel better. So I think that's the reason that I keep going, even when it gets hard and even when it's a lot of work. Then you've got, of course, the added benefits of all of your own home raised food. And just now, of course, I have kids and I want to pass this down to them as well. Yeah. So yeah. And then another big key in that journey was actually that when I graduated from college, I'm somewhat ironically, I'm a art history major. So I have a bachelor's of the arts degree. And as you may imagine, here in rural Ohio, it's kind of hard to find a job doing anything with art history. So when I graduated from college, I was struggling a little bit to find work. And I ended up getting hired by a company that actually owned several different mail order gardening catalogs. And really had no actual training or like educational experience in horticulture or gardening, but thankfully they took, they saw that I was capable of learning and that I had a background, growing up with this. And so that gave me a whole lot of opportunity to just continue learning and really cultivated my continued love of this subject. With that company, I actually worked there for I think just over 15 years before I started my own venture, and worked in every aspect, really like marketing, merchandising, R&D, kind of all over the place, and got a ton of opportunities to I've traveled all over the United States and the world looking at field trials, talking to breeders, talking to sales reps from different seed companies. So that's been a really interesting part of kind of my gardening journey as well.
Yeah, definitely. One thing again, you mentioned, I think was interesting there too, is like you were talking about when you were younger, that you were the family had you out there and you were doing it, and this was really kind of work in a sense. You got to do that. And I really like that kind of transformation that you talk about, because I think I see something similar with my daughter in a way too. It's just kind of like, this was my passion, this sort of thing, and she's kind of coming around to it now in her adulthood. But I think that's really interesting how you're talking about it. It's a chore. I've got to go out and I've got to do these sort of things, and so when gardening and growing food is such a part of our lives, in a big family like you're talking about, where you're really trying to grow and do as much as you can, it's really kind of essential part of, the lifestyle you're living, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And so again, I suppose as a kid though, too, it just, like you're saying, it just becomes work and all of that. And then again, too, and you also brought up this really huge point, I think, and again, is a part of my gardening story though too, is that later on, as I come back to plants in my adulthood, and then again started growing food plants and everything, and getting outside and raising this food for myself, I really start to make this connection with myself. Becomes there, like you're saying, therapeutic in a way, which was something I wasn't expecting when I got into the whole gardening thing. You want to expound on that just a little bit more, how that works for you in your life as well?
So I absolutely, and I'm so glad to hear you say that. And I really think, just, I don't usually like to share a lot of super personal stuff, but I have always struggled with depression, and as I get older, a little more with anxiety and a lot of this not so fun stuff that comes with not managing stress very well. And this is something that I find with gardening, that when I'm able to get out there, there's something just cathartic about that work. I think it's this combination of elements where, of course, like we know sunlight exposure is critical to us as humans. Like we have to have it. It's been proven that there's microbes in the soil that can actually fight depression. There's all of these very scientific elements, but there's also just something, I think, in the combined whole of being out in nature. And the longer I garden, I find that I have become so much more in tune with like natural cycles, and being so much more aware of like, just where, things like where the sun is in the sky, and when certain natural events are going to be happening each year, and when there's certain things that happen, like what kind of effect this has in my garden. Just watching cycles of nature, watching the way that other living things interact and coexist with each other. And like, not to get all hippy dippy, but I'm from a very, you know, practical Midwestern background. And for many years here in particular, conventional agriculture, conventional farming, conventional gardening has just kind of been the way. And it's this mentality of, you know, if anything's in our way, if there's anything in our garden that we don't want, you know, whether that's a weed or an animal, we just come out and we destroy it. It's like this very like human versus nature butting heads kind of an approach. And you know, I came from that. My parents were not so much that way, but I saw a lot of that growing up, and I still do in some cases. So I came from that. And you know, there's still times when I, you know, like my mole problem that I've talked about in some of my videos, where I'm like, I just, you know, I don't want to kill anything, but I'm at my wit's end with these things. And I still will choose violence sometimes, like in a case like that. But
Yes.
my point is that, like, through, I think, the longer I garden and the more that I observe nature, the less likely I am to just immediately, you know, reach for the mole trap or the mole poison or something like that. It's like where I can see the good and the bad and the balance, and that there's a reason that these things that we've deemed as bad exist. And that's, I think, kind of spilling over into my regular life, where it's kind of this, again, it's this balance of like, you go through horrible things in life, but then as you grow and learn, you kind of understand that there's a reason for this good and this bad, because everything has to be in balance all the time. And it just, you know, there's that element. There's just the pure therapeutic element of being able to go out in that garden and sit. Like, if I'm having a bad day and I'm feeling overwhelmed, that's the place that I can go and just sit and re-find kind of my center and my balance. And that is priceless. I mean, that's when I you know, talk to people that say, like, I don't, you know, maybe they live in an apartment, or they don't have room to garden, or they don't even have a place where they can go that's in nature. It really breaks my heart, because I don't know what I would do if I didn't have that. I rely on that so very much. So there's there's a lot to that, that therapeutic end of things, for sure.
Yeah. And I mean, and again, too, you touch on all those sort of elements of things that I think are really kind of the important part of that is, and similar for me, I'm a person similar, dealing with, you know, I've dealt with depression and anxiety issues and things like that. I'm a person who also, you know, find myself for some reason taking on the weight of the world. You know, I you know, things that are going on, I overthink things. I'll get myself involved with in you know, whatever's going on, you know, that sort of thing. And then combine that with like personal issues and downfalls of things. You know, I lost a few close people to me early on in my gardening adventure, and those were really heavy hits in my life. And so, like I said, I was digging in and trying some things. I grew I tell the story on the channel all the time. I grew a cucumber on a balcony in an apartment I lived in just before I moved down here to Southern Oregon and got the new space I was in. So it was kind of like this, I can grow food first fascination that I had. You know, and so then I got this, got just a little bit more space. So now I'm trying to grow, tomatoes and, peppers and all sorts of things now. And it's in working in those spaces and developing these sort of skills and things that I was getting through gardening and wanting to grow things that, again, like I said, it wasn't expected. The relief that I was getting from all of these issues that I was dealing with. You come in from the end of the day, and I'm telling you, I'm getting older too, and I feel them bones aching and creaking at the end of the night, like, oh man, I really put some work in out there. But even at that, I'm sitting back going, wow, I feel so much better. And all of that time, I wasn't thinking about these things I would normally be thinking about. I was, I didn't have these things consuming my mind. I was really kind of in the moment with these plants, with my garden space, and all of that sort of stuff. And like you said, there are many different elements that bring that all together. But I think that's one of the things that really, I think, is a surprise to a lot of gardeners, especially new gardeners. And that's why I think we really just everything just snowballs when we start getting into gardening. It's like we start with one thing and now we're doing all this other stuff because I think we're out in search for further relief, right?
It's absolutely addictive in the best way, I think. And I liked your point there about, like, yes, there's days that you come in and you are just bone tired, like every muscle hurts and like sunburn and just like exhausted. And this is what has been amazing for me. So I used to work a desk job, and it's a totally different kind of exhaustion. The exhaustion that I get, at least from that day in the garden, is so much better than the exhaustion that I felt after a day sitting in front of a computer screen. Like, I know that not everyone has that luxury. Some people don't look at it that way, but that luxury of walking away from a desk job. But for me, at least personally, like, the difference in just how I feel overall is astronomical. Like, sitting in front of a computer screen under artificial lights, breathing, recycled air, I felt so bad. And when I can go outside and just work and work and work till I'm completely exhausted, yes, I'm tired, and yes, it's really hard work, but it's the best feeling. It's just, and then I get up the next day and I might be sore, but man, like, I feel good. I feel good. I think how I'm supposed to feel. It's just a really nice feeling.
Yeah, I think when we're doing other things, like you're saying, whether it's computer work or some other work in general, we're expending energy. We're releasing energy. And I think when we're in the gardening, we're putting out energy, but it's like recycling. It's like, you know what I mean? It's kind of, we cycle it back, we cycle it through. We almost kind of clean out some of that energy in a way, if you're thinking about it. Whereas with other things, it's just gone. We're letting it go and it doesn't come back to us.
That makes so much sense. I've never heard it explained that way before, but yes, that's how it feels. Exactly.
All right. I just came up with that. So
Good.
I don't know where it came from, but I think it sounds great, right? Yes, definitely. And so, yeah, and again, too, I think it's really a great base to the real love and passion, and enthusiasm we get for our gardens and what we do is a lot of that, what it gives back to us, in that sort of sense of energy and all of that too. But I mean, we're in there growing, we're growing things. And for a lot of us who are growing for food, we're growing to produce our own food, we're getting we're also getting this huge reward back out of it as well too.
And that's that part of it that I haven't even, I didn't even really touch on that, but like that whole benefit of being able to eat fresh fruit and vegetables grown right there in your backyard. And we all know, like, those things are a lot healthier option than a lot of other things we could be eating. And so when you grow your own, I think you're more prone to eating more of this stuff because you have it, and often it tastes better when it's, well, I'm going to say 99% of the time it tastes
exactly
better. Very in the grocery store. So then you're feeding your body with all this stuff. So it's like, so that makes you feel better. So it's just kind of this cycle that just keeps providing benefit to the gardener, which is awesome.
Yeah, what you get back is almost unlimited limitless, in a sense, of everything we
Yeah.
get back from it, So let's see. So, I guess that really pretty much covers what would be my next question of what do you enjoy most about gardening, right? But let's dig into the garden real quick. What are some of these things? What are some of your favorite things to grow in the garden? What are you looking forward to each and every year growing in the garden?
I have such everything.
We got tough questions here.
It's, man, really, there's so many things. I do tend to go, I've noticed that I go though in cycles almost, where I'll get really, really wound up about a particular crop and I'll want to grow like every variety that's ever existed. And that'll last for a couple of years and then I'll usually cycle to something else. Of course, like I think every gardener goes through the tomato cycle of that. Like there's just so many cool tomatoes. And that was probably the first one I went through. And tomatoes will always be like, I will garden my entire life and never even touch being able to grow all the varieties of tomatoes that exist. There's so many. But here, I would say in the last couple of years, I've had a renewed love affair with winter squash. I've always loved winter squash, but it is because of pests and diseases, it can be a challenging crop to grow organically here in Ohio and other parts of the Midwest. If it weren't for the pests and diseases, it would be amazing. It grows like a weed here, but the pests and diseases can be challenging. So I think part of figuring out how to grow that efficiently, organically, has become part of the reason that I'm kind of obsessed with it right now. I just came off of kind of a cauliflower obsession where, again, it's a challenging crop. It's a challenging crop in a lot of areas. It's challenging here because cauliflower likes a really nice, long, cool, mild growing season, and we do not have that here. Typically, we will have our springs last until usually beginning middle of May, and our spring can be 80 degrees and then 25 degrees and then like it's just all over the place, and cauliflower hates that.
That's just like
and then it's like when spring is done, all of a sudden it's 85, 90 degrees and 90% humidity. So then your window is absolutely closed at that point. So again, that was kind of an obsession for me because I'm like, I'm gonna get this. Like I am gonna grow beautiful cauliflower here. And it's some seasons are better than some years are better than others, but that's something that I recently I think I've pretty much got that. I'm not going to say mastered because then Mother Nature will throw me a curveball. I've got it pretty much down. Carrots have been another one. Again, I think I like the problem children. All of these crops that are challenging here for one reason or another. Carrots, it's because of soil type. I'm growing in heavy clay, and carrots don't like heavy clay soil. So it's been trying to figure out that process, like how can I amend my soil? How can I build beds? What varieties do the best? So that's been, again, a kind of an obsession over the last couple of years. And I'm trying to think of things that just in general, I just love them. I love all of them.
I think, and too, very similar to me though. Again, I think I don't know, I obsess over, or I just, when I got a plant or a crop that's a challenge, and brassicas, like you're mentioning, maybe cauliflower individually for you, brassicas in general for me have always kind of been a challenge. And I kind of talked about this, I think, at the beginning of the show just a little bit, was that, each and every year I'm determined. I'm going to get these guys. I'm going to get it figured out. I'm going to grow some, I'm going to grow the best I've ever grown, and always find something new or something that just kind of gets in the way of getting the best I want. But I've had some good broccoli before. It's the one that I really, challenged with every year. I want broccoli. I love broccoli. So, I try to grow as many as I can. I've grown them with starts from seed and tried every different angle I could, getting them out earlier, protecting them from pests, doing all the sort of things I can in order to do that. But I think that's what I really enjoy the most, though, is that challenge.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I think I look forward to, like you're saying, to some of these things that challenge me each and every year.
And I was gonna say I totally agree. It's that challenge, and it's like once you figure it out, it's just such a rewarding thing. But that's the thing with gardening too, right? Is that it's almost an endless challenge, because once you figure out one thing, there's always something else. Even the things you figured out, like I said, Mother Nature decides to throw you a curveball. It totally like disrupts that whole like, oh, I thought this was working. I thought that I had this down. And then it's like you'll get thrown something that just kind of throws a wrench in the whole machine. And it's like, it is frustrating. And I think there are certain types of people that gravitate more towards that than others. But for me, like you said, it's just that's kind of what keeps me going. Is it's just I could do this forever, and there's always going to be a new problem to figure out, to research, to experiment with. It's just the possibilities there are endless.
Yeah, yeah. And I'll tell you, one of the things, every time I try to grow something that I'm not too like eggplants. I don't care for eggplants. I love eggplant plants. I love growing the plants, all that sort of stuff. And I give them to friends, so I'll grow them just for the fun of growing them and then give the fruits to friends. But I have no problem growing the things that I don't really consume myself. What is this? Everything I really love, everything I want. Like you're talking about with carrots, I get some okay carrots, but I really want to grow some big, fat, long carrots out of my space, and it just seems to be, again, those things that I really want are a challenge, and the things that I'm looking to grow for other people, I just seem to happen and seem to do just well. Okra is another one. I grow that as well for others, and man, those plants grow without any problems at all.
Yes, they do.
Right on. So oh, and too, you were mentioning tomatoes, and I find the similar thing with peppers too. So many varieties, so many of them out there. I love them all so much. Same with peppers. I love all of these different peppers and everything. But again, too, how are we ever going to get to grow all the different varieties out there? I try to.
Try every year. And I'm with you on the peppers, especially the hot peppers. I love them. They're so beautiful. I think I've said this before in videos, like really for the amount of hot peppers that my family goes through, like probably one jalapeno plant would be enough for us for an entire year. But I grow like 10, 12, 15 different varieties every year, because I'm just like, I get the seed catalogs and I'm like, oh, this looks so cool. And I just got to put them all out there and look at them. And I walk through my garden every morning and I'm like taking pictures of them, and like, I'm never going to eat all of these. And I do my best to give them away and get them to people that'll use them. But man, hot peppers are productive too. So it's like, it's a plethora of peppers at the end of the season.
Oh man, I'm telling you, peppers were kind of like my first real kind of like, when I started growing them, and again too, with all the different varieties. And I love, like you said, growing the hot peppers, even some of the hottest peppers I've grown, in my garden. But again, to think of eating any of them like right off, these hot peppers, I don't think I would do. But again too, it's more of that fascination of growing the plants and these different really cool pods and everything. Any certain types of peppers that are some of your favorites, or you got any varieties that you really like or you come back to?
Yeah, like for hot peppers in particular, I am loving there's been a lot of breeding in I'm blanking on the botanical name. It's a lot of the ahi peppers. It's a type that is native to South America, and the bacatum. So it's the capsicum bacatum, which is versus the regular, like sweet peppers or jalapenos. They're in a different species, but the bacatum types are again, I think native to South America. They tend to have like fruity sometimes citrusy, sometimes floral undertones to their flavor. But traditionally, they're a very, very long season plant, and traditionally very, very hot. And so there's been breeding in the last, 10, 20 years where people are trying to get an earlier version of this, and also trying to reduce that heat so that, like Midwesterners like me can handle actually eating them. And so one of my favorites that I've talked about before is Mad Hatter. And that one's very, very low heat. It will depend a little bit. Hot peppers tend to get hotter when they're grown under stressed conditions. So if you have really lovely soil and they get plenty of water, they're not good. The Mad Hatters in particular are going to have hardly any heat at all. If they get stressed, they'll get a little bit of heat up around that seed cavity and the top of the pepper. But either way, they're delicious. I can eat them raw. The heat level, like I said, is quite low. They're very fruity, almost citrusy. They have this really nice crisp texture, and they're very juicy. And they're just super productive and a beautiful plant. There's a few others. I'm trying to think, and I'm blanking on the name. Some of the seasoning peppers, where again, they have a little heat, but they don't get as hot, and they have more of a flavor of some type, that rather than being just heat, and that's all the experience that you get. I really like growing those types. I'm sorry, I'm blanking on the name of some of my favorites, and I can picture them. But yeah, and then of course every year I grow jalapenos, because smoked jalapenos are one of my favorite ways to eat any kind of hot pepper. And that, I mean, I've grown so many jalapeno varieties, and there's so many good ones out there. But yeah, I think
jalapenos, poblanos, those sort of, and serranos, those sort of ones are always kind of mainstays in my garden for sure. I'm growing those each and every year. There's one I really like. It's called, what is it? Tequila Sunrise.
I have seen that one.
Those
That's a beautiful
really awesome.
pepper.
Yeah, and it grows really orange, but I love those peppers that grow upright.
Yes, because they have that, they're so striking visually. You could grow them as an ornamental almost.
Yes, exactly. And one that I do kind of grow more as an ornamental though too, I got from one of my longtime viewers sent me some seeds of a variety called Chinese 5-color.
Yes, I love that one. And I'm the same. I only grow it as an ornamental. I did pickled peppers one year with it, but even that was a little too hot for me.
Yeah, a little warm.
They're so beautiful. I will stick them out and use them almost as I would a flower in the vegetable garden, because they're just gorgeous.
They're almost like little Christmas tree pepper plants, when they get all the 5 colors just really rolling throughout the plant. You've got all these different colors, and it looks like it's almost lit up with all these different colors.
Yes.
It just makes for a great sight in your garden space for sure.
Yes, it does.
Awesome. Let's see here. So we talked about some of your favorite things to grow. What are some of your least favorite things to grow? What's something you've grown that once and then probably just didn't come back to your garden again?
That is a good question. I don't know that there's anything that has never come back to my garden, and that's not necessarily by choice. I'm a trial gardener in addition to just doing this as a hobby. So I'm growing out seed varieties every year, testing them for seed companies and breeders. So some of what I grow every year isn't really by choice. It's what I get. It's what I'm testing out for other folks or other companies. So there's things that I grow every year that I might not necessarily grow for my own consumption. The things I'm trying to think, probably parsnips and rutabaga. I like both of those crops. I love eating parsnips, but they're like another level of difficulty for me above carrots. And I grew them. That was maybe 3 or 4 years ago, and I finally got a nice crop of parsnips, and I was like, "That's it." Like I did it, and I had really no desire to do it again. I will probably come back to them and grow them again at some point in the future, but they're not something that I put in the garden every year. Rutabaga, not particularly difficult. It's just a timing thing, but I don't really like them. It's not really something that, again, like I've grown them here and there, but it's not something I make a point of putting in the garden every year. The one crop that like I should just stop growing because I plant them every single year. They're super easy to grow. I never have any problem with them, but radishes, like and I've posted about this before. Like I've tried and tried and tried to make myself like radishes, and I just cannot get excited about them. I do like the daikons. I like eating the daikons, but like little round red radishes or like French breakfast types, I'm like, nah. Like I said, I plant them, they grow, I harvest them, and then I either give them to my father-in-law or they'll sit in my refrigerator until they turn into hard little shrivel up things that end up in the compost pile.
Have you ever tried the radish seed pods?
I have, yes. And like I have a friend that absolutely loves them, and she was the one that recommended I try them, and I grew them and they're fine. I don't know what it's
just one of those things. Yeah.
It's one of those things. I can't get excited about them.
Oh yeah. I do. I am a person who likes the radishes, but I completely agree with rutabaga. Parsnips, I haven't tried too much of. I tried them one year, and I'll probably try again here pretty soon. But definitely, I'm on the same page with rutabaga. I mean, grew that, tried some things out with it, and I was like, yeah, I'm just not into this at all, really. So
no, and that's like, I mean, storage turnips kind of the same way. They have that similar flavor profile, similar usage. Like I've grown them, I've tried them. And that's another one that I don't grow just because I'm like, I feel like I should enjoy them and I don't, but I do love salad turnips. And that's a completely different eating experience.
Yeah. And again, too, one of my things is if I grow something and I don't necessarily care for it, and I've got someone, a neighbor, a friend, or someone else who likes them, I'll definitely grow those again in order to, grow for other people and share them with my friends. But even with the rutabaga too, it was one of those ones where, I couldn't give them away. So
I was gonna say, you probably don't have people banging down your door for rutabaga.
Not happening. It's not happening. Yeah. So again, that's a interesting plant for sure. Let's see here. So what are some of those gardening challenges you're facing each and every year? What are those things that really kind of set you back, or that you're gonna have to take a new approach to, or something that each year kind of faces you?
For me, most often it's certain insect pests and certain diseases. So my big one is still, and every year, well, I should say it takes me longer than a year, but I usually try to like pick one in particular and kind of focus on it until I feel like I've gotten a growing method pretty much figured out. So I did that. Like cabbage worms was a good example where that's just a brassica pest that is horrendous here. They will devour everything if they can. And I was getting so frustrated because aside from cauliflower, the brassicas do beautifully here. Like, so broccoli and cabbage and kale, they'll do wonderfully, but the cabbage worms are so bad. They were literally stripping my kale down to like the midribs. So I was like, I got to figure this out. And again, like I garden organically. So if I'm going to use any kind of pest deterrents or like natural pesticides, it has to be an organic approved one. So I was like, I have to figure this out. And really that ended up being a pretty easy fix where what I settled on was just insect netting. I do metal hoops with insect netting pinned into the ground, and I can grow the brassica crops with no problem. Now, again, Mother Nature will probably send some other issue with brassicas my way, in a couple of years and kind of throw all that work out the window. But it's things like that. So right now, I'm still trying to perfect my cucumber beetle pest prevention techniques. They're a really frustrating insect pest here, mainly because they spread the bacterial wilt pathogen that can just take down, cucumbers and melons and that type of thing, just seemingly overnight. So figuring out ways to stop them has been challenging. Another one, the squash vine borer, another pest that's been a challenge for me. So, I focus on growing squash and pumpkins that have some resistance, but even then, if you have enough pest pressure, that it's not going to matter. They'll get in there if they really want to. So figuring out ways like to protect the plants, grow them under netting until they start flowering. I use surround kaolin clay spray to kind of protect the plants from some of these insect pests as well. But it's always testing out these variety of tech, because it usually is a combination of different techniques for a lot of these crops to help really just get them to maturity so that I can get a harvest off of some of them. The other big one for me has been septorial leaf spot in tomatoes. And that has been really exciting because when I first started working in the gardening industry, no one was talking about septorial leaf spot. It was a fairly localized problem to like the Midwest and I think the Northeast. And most of the tomato breeding at that time was being done either in California or Florida, where they don't even have that pathogen. So no one was looking at it. And only in the last maybe 10 years, but it feels more like 5, have breeders started to actually work on breeding resistance into tomatoes for septorial leaf spot. So now I'm getting a lot of really exciting varieties that a lot of them have septorial leaf spot and they have late blight resistance, which is another problematic disease here. So that's been really exciting for me. So I'm trialing out more of those varieties this year. I've been looking at, I think it's a bacillus strain, so a naturally occurring bacteria that basically there's a product that you can mix this up and spray it on your, I think it works for most vegetables. I've been testing it on tomatoes because what this does is it actually enhances the tomato plant's own natural, essentially immune system. So it makes them better able to fight off pathogens, in particular ones like septorial leaf and blight. So testing that product out to see what kind of results I get, using different, I've tested out like the copper fungicide and stuff, but I don't like to use that if I can avoid it. So yeah, just every year it's something, and for me, it's just this process of, okay, what am I going to test out this year? And then I'm not as good at this as I'd like to be, but I try to set up like legit experiments in all the cases that I can. So with the tomatoes in particular, it's something that I wish I would have started a couple years ago, but that spray that I mentioned, what I really should have done was had, my control where I didn't spray, and then have the same variety of tomato where I did spray it. And I did not set up a test like that. So I don't have a proven, I don't know for certain if it was the spray or if it was a fluke year where, I didn't happen to have that disease pressure. So that's something too, another factor where I'm always trying to set this up so that I can actually read the results in a meaningful way from all of this different testing that I do, and trying to figure out what is actually working and what is worth, the big thing, what is worth spending money on going forward. Because I feel like I'm relatively frugal when it comes to gardening. Like I don't like to spend a lot of money on it. I don't want to be using products if I have not seen proven results. So that's part of it too, where you hear so many different things, so much different advice, especially across the internet, about like what works for different things. And it's trying to narrow that down and see what really works.
Yeah, and definitely, like, and there is so much information out there and all of that, so it can be kind of confusing to newer gardeners and everything. So it's good there's folks like yourself who are out there doing the work, experimenting, playing around with things and all of that. Couple of things though too, like I'm lucky I don't have to deal with vine borer. Haven't had to deal with vine borer, but I sure get them squash bugs though that just, and so I've actually moved my squash growing over to another place this last year just so I can try to give a year off from that
Yeah.
space and hopefully try to push that back a little bit. I spent years here without seeing any of them. Like I grew squash for like several years without seeing any squash bugs, but somehow, some way, some flew in or got in there a couple seasons ago. And really, those things, I mean, you just turn your back for a second. Turn your back for a second, and they're everywhere.
They are. They're horrible.
I get a little vacuum out there, one of those little hand vacuums. Start sucking
Yep.
them up and everything.
That's a smart way to do it. I've considered doing that with the cucumber beetles too, because you're like going out there and like hand picking them and hand squishing them. There's so many. It's just like you could spend hours.
Yeah. Like I would spend like I the first time I would like get like a jar of some water or something like that, and I'd be like knocking them into it, walking around knocking them into it. Like this isn't gonna work in the long run. A couple of days later, and they've tripled their population, even when you thought you got all of them.
Yeah, because there's always one or two that you miss. Always.
Oh yeah, there's always one or two that you miss, definitely. And
then, your story about knocking them into water. Do you have Japanese beetle pressure out there?
I haven't had it either.
Oh, you're lucky. They're bad here, but it made me think about my dad we get horrible Japanese beetle infestations here in Ohio, and for some reason my parents get them really bad. They get them all over their grapes, and it's another one of those pests that will just defoliate entire huge grapevines. So my dad was like, well, I'm going to go out there, because that's what they say, knock them all into soapy water, and eventually they can't fly out and they'll suffocate and they'll die. My dad, I come over to my parents' house, and in the yard, my dad has this giant container, and there's like it's the whole surface of the water is covered, and there's all these things it looks like this rioting mass of like iridescence. It was very bizarre looking. I'm like, Dad, what is happening here? And he's like, oh, those are the Japanese beetles. They've been in there for a week and they were still alive. Like, I don't think any of them were dead. And so we're like, I don't know what's happening, because I know that works in some cases, but I'm like, I don't know if these are like super mutant, extra strength Japanese beetles now that are infesting my parents' grapevines or what, but it was really bizarre.
So they literally they weren't dying, huh?
No, they were not.
Oh my. Do they have chickens? Do they make good like chicken food at all?
They do. My parents don't. I do here. The trouble is, like, if the chickens don't catch them, then they'll just fly off, and then they're right back on your plants 2 seconds later. I'm sure someone out there.
So they don't get stuck in the water though.
Oh, they do. I guess you could. Yeah, I see what you're saying. Like, you could just give them the whole water bucket and they could pick them out of there. But like what I've done before is just catch them in a jar with no water and then put them out to the chickens, and the chickens are running all over the place trying to get them. And then they'll just fly away. But yeah, I've noticed, because chickens are pretty good at eating most pests, but I think sometimes it's like depending on the chickens, or I don't know, their personality. Like, I've thrown tomato hornworms out to my chickens and they just kind of like turn up their beaks at them, where I've heard other people say, oh, my chickens just love tomato hornworms, and they'll gobble them up as fast as I can throw them out there. So there's that too.
Yeah, you never know. I don't have chickens yet. It's something I'm working on, but I imagine there's probably some bugs and things that they don't really like, maybe, but yeah, that would be a great way to at least deal with them if you're able to knock them into some water, let them feed on that sort of thing as well too, if you have them. But yeah. And another one you mentioned too is tomato blight. I'm so lucky I don't have to deal with that too as well. So I don't really get that pressure as well either. But yeah. But I do get my own. I mean, believe me, white fly is a huge one for me. And I've been trying to deal with that over the last couple of seasons. You got any tips on that? Have you had to deal with whitefly?
So knock on wood. I've not had whitefly here yet. A friend of mine who is just gardening like an hour south of me said that he had whitefly in his carrots. I think for the first time this past year, and he said his plan going forward is just to he's going to obviously move the planting, but he's going to net them basically as soon as he plants this carrot seed out. He's going to do the insect netting and try to keep the adult flies out that way. So hopefully that will work, because I figure that's kind of my gauge. Like if he gets pests down a little bit further south of me, I kind of know that they're coming my way within a year or two. So I'm sure that's one that will be here probably soon. But right now I don't really have an experience or
just because of the cooler climate, maybe then, right?
Yeah. Because even though there's so much, like, again, I'm only, I think, an hour and a half north in Ohio from him, but we're like, because I think part of it is being rural and being in more of a microclimate, it does tend to stay colder here. And so I'm actually in I think that's a full zone, lower, what he would be, I think he got knocked up to 7. I'm still in 6A where I'm at in Ohio. So yeah, there's a pretty big difference. Even I used to work about 40 minutes south of where I live, and I could almost always count on it being at least 5 to 10 degrees cooler from the time I left work till the time I got home. Just, again, the little bit of difference in north to south, but a lot of it being more urban to more rural.
Yeah, there are quite big differences just between one zone area to the next. What I was going to mention too is that when it comes to pest pressure, one of my challenge again in the brassica range is Brussels sprouts. Those are just I think probably one of the toughest things I've grown. I did have one good year where I was able to harvest some, but this last year again, being determined, I'm determined I'm going to do this. Right. So I get them growing. And for me, it's just really get the plants going, keep them alive through the summertime. And once it starts cooling down in the fall, that's when I saw the successes I had in them, was just basically keeping them alive through the summer. When it starts to cool down, then they just kind of just go crazy from there and start growing. But pest pressure, and first, we talked about the cabbage worms, the little white spot or black spotted butterfly or moth that you see that flying around your garden there. That's what it's doing. It's laying those eggs all around in those spots. And I was able to really kind of keep that pressure off, and didn't have too much. I mean, there were a couple here and there, lost, maybe a couple of leaves here and there off of some of them, but I was able to keep that back. And then come the aphids. The aphids want to get all over everything. And it's like, okay, so I take a real natural method with aphids. I just use my hose. I just get out there and I just hose them off each and every day for a few days once I start seeing that pressure. And then you're able to kind of cut the pressure back, and then they're not able to kind of repopulate after a while. That's always worked really well. So I get through all of that, and plants are still kind of cruising along and everything. And then all of a sudden I turn around and here's whitefly. And no matter what this was the killer. This is what done them in, was the whitefly for sure. And next thing you know, like I said, you turn around and the whole plant is this, just awful white dustiness and just terrible. And it's like, oh man, and I kept you alive for all of this time, and I made it through all of that other stuff just to do that. So now this year, that's got to be is just to be prepared a little bit more for when that time of year comes about and they start, having to deal with that sort of pressure.
Yep. And that's funny, because Brussels sprouts because they're such a long season vegetable, and it's such a commitment. So to have it, to go through all of that only to have it taken down by the whitefly. I can imagine how frustrating that is.
Yeah, that's the thing for us gardeners too. Another part of the, the connection that we have, is that we're, for a lot of us who are growing from seed, or even if you are starting from a plant start, you get in a nursery, though, we're taking care of this plant, from a very young age and growing it through, and hoping to get, a good harvest off of them as we, move through our season. So there's a lot of work that goes through, and a lot of, attachment that kind of happens, you know, that we're getting in. And so, and again, like I said, when it comes to being able to take care of certain things and keep it alive, and then all of a sudden later in the season to see all of that work just diminished by just one pest come flying through, and something that's just so hard to handle, you know, it can be really kind of disheartening, you know, when it
Yeah.
comes down to it, because then it's a whole nother season, right? It's like I
Yeah, but
said, gardening. Just say like gardening's like baseball. You know, I'm a big baseball fan. It was like, you know, well, if the season isn't so good, we always got another one. But still, we
yes.
gotta wait for that next season, right?
Well, that's the reason I think I always like, I know I need to grow more. We have a lot of fruit plants out here, but I feel like my ratio needs to shift because my kids eat a lot more fruit than they do vegetables. But I struggle with that because the vegetables, for the most part, are an annual crop. So I get a new try every single year. Whereas fruit plants, a lot of them are such a commitment. And
Oh
I'm
yeah.
like, man, I don't know. It's like keeping a, fruit tree alive for whatever 8-10 years before I actually even get any fruit. That just feels very overwhelming sometimes. So I do appreciate the annual vegetables for that reason.
Yeah, I think that is too. It is kind of one of those disappointing things, especially when you got the trees and you got to start dealing with some of those issues. And you know, and I'm not sure what kind of pests and things that you deal with when it comes to trees and all of that, or even again too environmental issues. Like I've got with my trees. I've got this really awesome frost peach that I grow in a container, and it's, you know, it's just amazing to get these peaches off it. And I've had a couple of good years of getting them, but then over the last couple of years we've had these really late frosts.
Yeah.
So then you start dealing with that, and so again too, you know, you're looking forward to, oh, peaches this year, this is going to be great, and then you start seeing all of those fruits and those flowers dropping, and you're like, oh no. So
Yeah.
again, it's in full bloom right now. It's sitting right out there. It's looking beautiful. But then I'm going, oh, come on, let's keep the frost, you know, from happening.
Yeah, it's been doing the exact same thing here where we've had days. I think it was 70 the other day. So everything is wanting to bloom out and sprout out, and yeah, we're gonna drop back down into the 20s in a couple days. So there's every year peaches, like you said, we lose peaches a lot of years. I think last year we lost a lot of the. I'm trying to remember because all the fruit trees for the most part are at my mom and dad's. And I think the pears got hit really bad. We actually ended up with a lot more apples than we thought we were going to end up with. But yeah, it seems like that part of it is just getting dicier every year, where it's like it just gets super warm super early and everything's budding out, and then like that frost is going to come back. We've had years where, that was a couple years back, everything was beautiful, blooming. I even thought, it was like, this is it, spring is here, we're not going to get hit again. We got hit in May with a hard frost, and I think at that point it was actually past our supposed last frost date. So it's always it's always kind of a crapshoot.
Yeah,
Every
that
year.
was last year. Definitely had this frost after our last frost date, and it was like, oh, and you know, again too, it's just one of those big bummers. You're looking forward to it so much. My tactic this year though is, and it can't, you know, a lot of people can't do this sort of thing with most trees. They're good size. We have smaller container trees, so I think I'm going to do a similar thing, you know, and put like a cover, you know, kind of a protective cover over the top for
Yes,
any
that's a
sort
good
of
idea.
frosty evenings and stuff. So I might, you know, I think I've got enough that'll cover it over just fine, you know, but you know, it's going to really be really hard to do for folks who have larger trees to get something to cover that whole thing. But I'm going to see how well that might work and protect some of our peaches and help us out this year. But yeah, that's again too such a bummer when you invest so much time and energy into certain things, or even those ones that just are perennial trees that are just out there doing their work and have to deal with those other environmental and pest pressures, losing crops. You know, that's not fun.
Yeah. Well, I'm like, there's so many, especially again with the fruit, there's so much cool stuff out there, so many things I want to grow, but I've been trying to really focus on more native plants because they're going to be so much better equipped at dealing with some of these crazy weather swings that we have here. So like growing, I'm trying to think, the ones that do really well here tend to be the apples. They're much better suited to our climate versus like, I love apricots. I love them so much, but it's just not something that tends to do well. We might get a crop 1 year out of 10 because as soon as it gets warm here, they're budding out, because this is not the kind of a climate. They're used to a climate that stays cold longer. And when it stops being cold, it stays warm. And with our shifts that are all over the place, it makes it difficult to be successful with them here. So it's like, as much as, and I'll probably still, with things like that, put a tree or two out, but it's like, I know going in, I'm not going to make that the bulk of my planting, and I'm not going to devote a whole ton of my time and energy into those because it's just not worth it in the end.
Yeah. You just got to kind of manage expectations in some cases when it comes down to it. Just being aware of, again, too, especially with trees and those sort of things, your hardiness zones, making sure that, they're going to be, well adapted to those areas, and maybe even zone down a little bit just to prepare for maybe even colder times and things like that. But definitely. And well, let's see here. Let's talk a little bit here before I let you go about Growfully with Jenna. Now, how in the long run, you got all this great gardening experience and lifelong gardening, adventures and all of that. How and when did how did it come about for you to start a YouTube channel?
So I like to tell people, like, I'm the world's least likely person to ever start a YouTube channel. This was not ever something that I thought I would do. I am not particularly I'm not good. I'm not techie. I'm not good at this kind of stuff. Putting myself out there in the public eye was not really something that I was super keen on. And I don't even really watch YouTube myself that much. Again, I wouldn't have never envisioned this being something that I did, but I had a coworker, a work colleague that really, he has a really good knack for seeing what people are good at that they may not even realize themselves, and then kind of pushing them into that, even though it may be way out of their comfort zone. And years ago, he really, I guess he thought this would be a good idea and really pushed me into this. Just kept kind of pushing me to give it a try, and hooked me up with some people to kind of give me support, people that already had done YouTube channels and had some expertise, so that I didn't feel so just having no idea what I was doing going into it. And so really it was because of that push that I even gave it a shot. And I mean, when I started, I thought, it's like my mom and 2 other people are going to watch this channel. And I always wanted to put out really good information, put out as good a quality videos as I could. I mean, this was something where, again, I had never ever used never shot any videos, never used any kind of video editing software. I had no idea what I was doing when I started. So this has all been kind of a learning process, but I still really want to put out a nice finished quality product, because I feel like if people are going to take the time to watch my videos, I want them to be as good as I can manage to make them. But yeah, really like I said, it was just kind of that push from him that got me started. And when I started to see that people were really kind of hungry for this information, and a lot of people in my area, whereas there are a lot of awesome YouTube channels out there, and I'm seeing more and more that's located in the Midwest, but there's not a ton of, most of the big channels are California or the South, or there's a lot of really great ones out of England, but not a whole lot for Ohio and similar climates. And so I had so many people coming to me oh, this is so helpful, because our growing here is so different than growing in some of these other areas. And so just being able to provide some insight into the specific growing area, and then also with my background in trialing different plants, being able to recommend specific varieties that will do well in this climate. I think people really got some benefit out of that information as well. So as I started hearing from more people, I'm like, well, if people are actually finding this information valuable, like I can't quit. I feel like I can't quit doing this. I really want to help people, and I really want, I want as many people to garden as possible. Like I know it's not feasible for everyone to have a garden, but to support anyone who might be thinking about it or anyone that's new, if I can help in any way to kind of give them that push, that's really important to me. And this platform seems to be a really good way to do that. So yeah, that's kind of how I got into it and why I keep going with it.
Yeah. It's really great. And you got a really great channel. I think your presentation is just really great. I think you do really well. You might not think or wonder. I think we talked a little bit about this yesterday when we were checking if everything was all right. And it is just, that putting yourself in front of a camera, doing that sort of thing is a little intimidating and everything. But I think that's one of the reasons why people really kind of connect with your channel a lot, is that you're a really great presenter of information and put together some really great videos, and just really, really amazing to have you here on our channel to be able to share all of your garden experience and your garden story with everybody. So it's just been a real delight to have you here today. And thank you so much for spending your time with us today.
Well, thank you for having me. This has been a lot of fun.
Yeah, definitely. And if you guys are just and I know there's a ton of people who already know who you're here. They've been sending me message and let me know how much they were really anticipating seeing you here on the show. And in fact, we made a mention of this appearance just a little bit before our show, a channel that Nate Garden Like a Viking, he has a live stream he does just before mine, and I kind of watch in every week, and he was our guest last week and everything. So we've been kind of pumping it up and letting everybody know that you were going to be on. So people have been excited, and it's great to great to have you here. And for everybody else too, if you haven't yet and you haven't subscribed to Jenna's channel too, we do have links down in the description for you to go check out her channel as well. Anything else before we head on out of here that you might want to share with everybody?
I don't think so. Just the one thing I will say in parting is just, if you aren't gardening yet and you've been considering it, just make this the year. Jump into it now. Start small. Start with one pot of potted plant. If that's all you can manage, just start somewhere and do it this year, because I think in the long run you will be really happy that you did.
Yes, really, really great advice. So really awesome. Again, everybody go check out Jenna's channel down in the description below. And thanks once again, Jenna, for joining with us here. It was really, really awesome to have you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. That was just a really awesome conversation. Once again, here, our second week of our new season, and how lucky were we to be able to have a really fun and interesting discussion with Jenna from Growfully with Jenna, and also with Katrina from Sow and Tare joining with us earlier in the show. Two really, really awesome women in the gardening community joining with us here on our show this week. So what a really awesome privilege it is for us to be able to have these awesome conversations here. And again, to go and check out their channels in our links down below in the description there. Just really great channels, lots of really awesome gardening information, and just a couple of people just sharing just a really wonderful passion for growing things that we all share here at the Urban Gardener channel. So again, too, be sure to come and join with us tomorrow. Tomorrow is our Sunday edition of the show. Our Sunday edition is new this year, again at the same time, 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, 2 p.m. Eastern Time. And tomorrow we will be answering all of your gardening questions with our good friend Scott Wilson from the Gardener Scott channel. Scott's going to join with us each and every month on the second Sunday of the month. Now I know it's the third Sunday of this month. We had to kind of flip it around for our first month here, but we'll have him tomorrow for this Sunday, and then next month it'll be the second Sunday of the month. And then, as I also mentioned during our interview just a little bit earlier too, with Katrina from Sow and Tare, we did introduce our book club. We're gonna have a monthly book club where we're gonna dig into some really great gardening books and have our those authors on as guests each and every month to review and talk about their different books. This month's book is Foraging for Wild Foods Without Dying, from the author Ellen Zakos, and she is going to join with us, which will be our third Sunday of next month for our review of that. And so you can go and check out, and I believe, I'm not sure, but I'll make sure there's a link down below in the description as well to that book there. You can get a copy of that book, review it, read it, can then come and join with us for our discussion on the book at our book club there too as well. And also, be sure to join with us next Saturday, again, 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, 2 p.m. Eastern. We are going to have an interview that I recorded already, but we're going to feature this interview on next week's show with our good friend James Prigioni from the Gardening Channel with James Prigioni. He joined me this last week for a really great conversation. It's really fun. I really hope that you all come and join with us and check that out as well too. We are going to have with us Joe and Corky from Grow Big TV for our Are You Following Me segment. Joe and Corky have a really fun live stream that they do over at Grow Big TV. So it'll be really great to get introduced to them and meet them and have a fun conversation about what they've got growing on over at Grow Big TV. So we've got lots and lots of really great things still coming up here on this year on our show. Lots and lots of awesome, wonderful guests here. So definitely be sure to come in and join with us next week, as well as tomorrow on our Sunday edition too. And let's see here. Let's jump in. I want to make sure to say goodbye to everybody. So many awesome people in here. We've got thanks everybody. And I definitely couldn't name everybody here, but thanks to Brian and Heather, and of course Jay, our moderator, Rob's Allotment Gardening, joining us from the UK, coming in here. Definitely good to see you. Connie Davison, this is Jenna's channel, even helps me in Texas. Absolutely, that's awesome. Heather Fox, and Brampton Gardner, the winner of our copy of a book too. That's another thing we're going to try to do, is give away a copy of our books each and every book club meeting that we have. So when we see Ellen Zakos for our first book club here, when we finish that one up, we'll announce our next month's book and give a book giveaway of that book as well too. So that's one fun thing about joining in with our book club, is you can possibly win a copy of one of these great books that we'll be reviewing in our monthly book club. G Mama, thanks for joining with us. Kay, thank you as well. Fields of Gold, it was great to see you. Dave, great to see you again. Thanks everybody so much for joining with us. Will Dog says, yes, I'll be here tomorrow. Awesome. Hope to see all of you here with us as well tomorrow too, to talk with Gardner Scott. Oh, and as well too, we'll be talking with, again, we'll have join with us live once more our good friend Mark Roche Colbert. He's actually going to be joining with us from the rooftop of his the rooftop garden he manages in downtown Portland. It's a place called Noble Rot, which is a cool little restaurant wine bar. It's up on the fourth story of this 4-story building in downtown Portland. And Mark manages a urban rooftop garden up there that they actually harvest from for the restaurant. So that's going to be really fun for our In the Garden segment for tomorrow too. So you definitely want to come and join with us tomorrow and check that out as well too. Dave saying, yeah, Gardner Scott. Awesome. Yep. So definitely, everybody, really great to have you all here, and really look forward to seeing everybody this next weekend. So you all have a wonderful, wonderful gardening week, and I'll see you tomorrow for the Sunday edition or next Saturday.